you and I met through, I think it was Beryl, who now has her own dietetic internship. So I'm really excited about that because we met for one day in person, but we've kept in touch for many years. And so this just goes to show you about growing your network and, you know, reaching out and keeping in touch with people. So I'm really happy to have you on. So you are part of what we're doing right now, and we'll hopefully always be doing this entire year because this is my MO, is a weekly Wellness Wednesday IG Live at some point of the day every week with somebody within the health and wellness field. And so since January is Thyroid Awareness Month, I immediately thought of you. And I don't even know if a lot of people even know what Hashimoto's disease is and or even where the thyroid is. So I want you to first, if you don't mind, just give us a couple of give some insight as to who you are, where you're at, like what you're doing, what your specialty field is, and then we'll go a little bit more into like the actual, you know, physiology stuff.
Totally. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. When I saw your name pop up, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's been forever. It just brought a smile to my face.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chelsea. I'm a registered dietitian, fellow dietitian here. And I help women with Hashimoto's disease, which is a thyroid autoimmune condition that I was diagnosed with actually during my undergrad of becoming an RD. So that definitely threw a big wrench in school and trying to function properly. But I always say it's like the biggest blessing I ever had, because I wouldn't be here having my own private practice that's going so well that, you know, without having the diagnosis myself and being curious and realizing that there's like no one out there to help these women. So I became the person, and I'm still working on helping myself too, but you know, we're all on this journey together. And I think that that's the coolest part, is when you find something you're truly passionate about that affects your life and you're able to help other women heal and do the same thing. It's like just the coolest thing ever.
So is it common to be diagnosed or not to know that you have something, especially with this particular condition, that were you struggling for many years trying to figure out what was going on, and then finally you had a label to it?
Yeah, so it took me about 1.5 years to get an actual diagnosis, which for most people, that's actually a really short amount of time. You know, a lot of women get Hashimoto's. So it's definitely predominantly female. However, males can get it, but it's symptoms like chronic fatigue, excessive weight gain, headaches, joint pain, brain fog that the medical community unfortunately tosses off as you're stressed, you need to diet, you're a new mom, or, you know, like there's so many other things that they try to push off to women with Hashimoto's that make them feel like their symptoms aren't valid. And then all of a sudden, when none of the other stuff works and they're essentially begging their doctors to help them, they're like, let's check your full thyroid panel. And then magically, boom, they have an autoimmune disease, which really messes up your body.
Right. So so I'm going to jump ahead for a second just to ask, let's define that then. So what do we need to know about the thyroid? What does it do? And then how is Hashimoto's related to that?
Totally. Yeah. Well, first of all, if anyone's watching, give me a yes in the chat box if you've ever heard of Hashimoto's, and if you haven't heard of Hashimoto's, what you think it is. Because I love hearing what people think it is. Because when I first heard the word Hashimoto's come out of my doctor's mouth, I was like, Hashi what?
Yeah.
What? Like, what is this? And what's crazy is there's like no information, and yet it's one of the world's most common autoimmune disease. So let's talk about the thyroid for a second, right? The thyroid sits right in front of your vocal cords.
I'm taking notes, by the way, as I always do, Chelsea. So
go for it.
Thank you.
Right in front of your thyroid, right in front of your vocal box, right here. And it's a small gland that's shaped kind of like a bow tie or a butterfly, you may see it referred to. But it essentially, what's happening is your immune system thinks that your thyroid tissue, so like the tissue of the organ, is a foreign object. Right. So it's producing antibodies to attack itself. So your immune system's producing antibodies to attack your thyroid gland. You can have Hashimoto's without having a hypothyroid diagnosis. However, it is very common for women with hypothyroidism to have Hashimoto's. So hypothyroidism, have you ever heard of hypothyroidism, guys? Give me a yes if you've heard of it.
Yeah, some people are actually writing it in there already. Yeah. Hypo
cool.
meaning low. Hypo meaning low. Right.
Right. Hypo means low. So that means you're not producing enough of the thyroid hormone. And the thyroid helps our body pretty much do everything. Like literally it affects your weight, your body temperature, your metabolism. It's connected to your gut health, your organ health, your gut health, your liver health, your adrenal health, your brain function, right? Like there's so much that goes into what the thyroid does. And it feels almost like it's like nonchalantly talked about. Like, oh, you're overweight, right? This happened to me so many times, guys. I have been morbidly obese pretty much my whole life and have struggled with weight issues. And they were always like, let's test your thyroid. Let's test your thyroid, as if it were like some club to get into. And it was like the cool thing. And I think that
the elite.
Right. And it's like normalized. But I think the main issue is, why are we having all these women all of a sudden having so many symptoms and so many of these issues associated with autoimmune diseases that are left like not talked about? So we have hypothyroidism, which is very common. I see a lot of people have both.
I'm catching up. We'll address some of these comments. We'll scroll through these in a sec.
Yeah, I can't see them, so I see like some words. But yeah, so it affects everything, guys. So your body's not producing enough of the thyroid hormone that it needs to do all of these different functions and convert the inactive thyroid hormone into the active form for our body to do all its functions. So it's crazy how important this little tiny thing is.
And so just as a side note, when we talk about autoimmune diseases out there, in case anybody's wondering, when you hear that word, that's exactly what Chelsea was describing. Your body thinks there's an attacker coming in, and so it's fighting back, and therefore it's actually working against what you would want it to do normally. So if you've heard of people with celiac disease or lupus or type 1 diabetes, that's also an autoimmune related condition too, where your body doesn't do things it's supposed to do because it thinks it's being attacked. And when we hear things like Hashimoto's or anything that is like an assigned person's name, it usually means that it's been discovered by that doctor or that person. So that's why in this case it's called that, I assume. Yeah,
definitely. And I think one important note that I just want to say is our body is always trying to protect us, right? Like our body's not working against us. It doesn't think that it's doing anything wrong. So it's producing antibodies, right? It's attacking our thyroid because it thinks our thyroid is a foreign invader.
Right.
So just keep in mind that your body's not working against you. It's trying really hard to protect you. It's just a little confused.
It's confused. Right. It's like, oh, I thought, no, I'm not supposed to do that. And I wanted to ask too, because, you know, I think this is something general public wise. Like I know when I go to doctors, and they take my blood and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then they call me back to tell me things about cholesterol or maybe vitamin D. But is the PTH, the parathyroid hormone, is that the blood lab that is normally on a panel, or do you have to ask for things to be looked at? Like, does that normally come up in a regular, you know, what's called like a MET panel, metabolic panel?
Right. So the common thyroid panel, so that's run on a classic, like, metabolic panel, or just the primary panel that you always get,
right?
With the things like sodium, potassium, you know, all the normal labs that you run, that you may, if you don't know any of the lab names, I don't want to get too sciencey,
okay.
But it's essentially what they always run on you.
Okay.
And what's great is that you can ask for a copy of it and then work with a practitioner who can help you actually understand what these numbers and these words mean.
Right.
Because that was a big struggle for me, because I was like, I don't even know what does the number mean. So a thyroid panel, a full thyroid panel, is different than the thyroid panel that's normally tested. So what's normally tested is your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, T3 and T4, which are the inactive and active forms of your thyroid hormones, and then reverse T3. So there's normally 4 to 6 different things on an actual thyroid panel. We want for Hashimoto's a full thyroid panel that includes antibodies. Okay. We have to ask for this, and most doctors, because thyroid conditions are so not, like, who's going to pay for the studies, right? Like, they're just not researched at all. Most doctors will be like, nope, see you later. Your TSH is fine. See you later. Because it's associated with hypothyroidism. So if your TSH is fine, most doctors, especially the older ones, probably won't test you. It took me literally getting the office man, not my shiniest moment, let me tell you that. I cried and yelled and essentially told them, like, I'm gonna really kill your business, like, socially, if you don't do this for me, because I'm going through hell. And insurance doesn't always cover it. However, some doctors can, if they're on your side, and this is something I teach in my new program, the Hashimoto's method, is like questions to ask your doctor, because guys, you're paying your doctor.
Yep. Like, for 15 solid minutes.
Literally, you're paying your doctor. So if they don't treat you the way that you want to be treated, they don't listen to you, go see another one.
This is patient advocacy, Chelsea. And this is why I was just talking about this before too. Anytime you're paying somebody, they work for you. So unfortunately, when it comes to like the authority figures, as many doctors are seen, it's just like, oh, okay, I got that diagnosis, or they're handing me something and I'm supposed to or not supposed to do this, or I'm supposed to take medicine and I'm not going to ask any questions. We on this side of things, we really want to advocate and empower you to ask the right questions, especially, and Chelsea, I'm sure you're agreeing with this because you mentioned it before, if you are in some sort of marginalized population, you get dismissed very easily. And I'm talking whether you're female, unfortunately, or in a larger size body, or of color, you get told, nah, you don't know anything. So we really enjoy sharing this information and empowering and advocating for you to be, an educated consumer in that way.
Exactly. And being empowered. Like,
so yeah, I was going to say too, is it good? So it would be an out-of-pocket expense unless you scream at the office manager or somebody, or would you end up going and saying, well, then refer me to an endocrinologist, or who would manage that?
So your primary could run a full thyroid panel on you. And for example, mine was actually covered by insurance, not because of the type of insurance I have, because my doctor, I was very adamant on my case, saying, no, I have all the classic signs and symptoms of an autoimmune disease. Why are you not testing me for anything? Because I'm overweight. That's BS. I'm not going to curse on here. But that's BS and not right. And that's not fair. And lo and behold, the doctor, I don't see this doctor anymore, but she called me apologizing to me, and I had an autoimmune diseases. I think the key here is knowing that, guys, if you have symptoms, and on my feed, I have tons of like signs and symptoms. If you don't know, or if you are working with women with autoimmune diseases, go check out my feed for Hashimoto's, because you're going to see that a lot of women have these symptoms, which is why it's the most common autoimmune disease in the world. Like one of them. So keep in mind that while insurance may not pay for it, what is this one expense to figure out and have an answer worth to you or worth to your client, so that they can have a step-by-step system and know how to actually feel better, versus thinking that these symptoms are a life sentence.
I want to ask a couple of questions before we dive into some of the comments in here. So is there a root cause? Because a lot of times autoimmune diseases don't necessarily develop just magically, like there's some sort of trauma or viral thing that maybe it's at birth. So the fact that you were saying you only got diagnosed like recently, and it took, however long it took you to get diagnosed, could it have been the whole time? Like this is what was going on from, in your adolescence, puberty, etc.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely could have been. There's a few different known root causes, but it's hard to tell what your root cause is. I always tell my clients, like, let's not worry about what the root cause is. Let's worry about how to get you feeling better, and like now and the future. But I know genetics play a huge role into it. If another family member in your line has Hashimoto's or a thyroid condition, you are more susceptible to getting it. Gut health. A lot of autoimmune diseases start with an impaired gut lining, which is why you see gut health. Guys, if you're working with autoimmune or you have an autoimmune disease and you're seeing gut health, it's not because it's the fad. It's because it definitely affects things, which is you into your diet, right? Changing your diet and things like that. Trauma. stress. I definitely think that mine was a mix of, it's hard to define it, but I definitely think that as a child, I was on antibiotics all the time. So that definitely affected my gut health. I was also on birth control. That affects everything, all your hormones. I also was in a very competitive registered dietitian program that set off a ton of stress and competitiveness to the point where I couldn't function. So you add all of it into a cocktail.
Right.
Makes sense.
And that really does speak to the holistic approach, if we want to call it that, in the sense of it's environmental, but it's also genetics. And it could be, you know, some familial stuff or whatever is in there, but it's also how you're treating yourself and the stress and stuff. So it's helpful to know that for anybody, when you're working with a practitioner, you know, make sure they're not just quick to prescribe something or dismiss you. Make sure that they're looking at the whole person and making sure that even if the simple questions are, you know, can you afford this? Where do you get your food? Are you treating yourself well? It's a pandemic, you know, like, whatever, like they're checking in on a bunch of different things. Because I joke, like the neck bone is attached to the butt bone, like everything's related to everything, like you were saying too, with the gut and all that stuff too, Chelsea. So can you tell us a little bit about a current day in the life of you right now? Like, I know I'm watching your stories. I know that you have a particular program that you were crying on the toilet about. So I like to hear more about that conversation that took place. So tell us about a day in the life of you, who you work with, and the fact that, you know, in my mind, and there's something I'm sharing with people, I'm like the DIs that the interns and the students I'm working with now, you went from dietetic intern to having your own private practice, which a lot of people think, oh, it's going to take me forever. And granted, you know, it takes time to do that, but walk us through how that came about too. Like, how did you just decide I have to do this on my own?
Totally.
That's a lot of questions. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm just going to start like from my beginning and then work my way through the questions.
Yes.
So I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease about 6.5, 7 years ago. And I think I had it way before then. So I was in my second bachelor's degree to become a registered dietitian. Then I did my residency, your dietetic internship. I call it a residency just in case no one understands what a DI is.
Right.
So it's a residency where you basically go through all the different types of dietetics and figure out essentially what you want to do. So we're in hospitals, long-term care facilities, private practice, WIC. I mean, you could go anywhere and learn anything. And I always knew, you can ask anyone who was in my DI, I was like, I'm not working for nobody. I just know that I'm meant to help people.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here. I finished the DI. I did get a job at a long-term care facility for about a year and a few months. And I just felt like I wasn't helping people. It wasn't filling my cup up. And that's when I learned about entrepreneurship, true entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I took the dive. I started working with women with only autoimmune diseases at first, like any and all. And I realized I was just Googling things, which was just not what I had wanted.
Right.
And that's actually why I started going to school in the first place, because people were asking for advice and I was just Googling things. So it was like, hey, this isn't working. What do I really know? And what do I feel is going to like fire me up every day to help these people? And that was Hashimoto's. I was like, I have it. I'm learning to heal it right now. I'm feeling great. I finally got the support. And that's where kind of my 4 pillars came into play, which is mindset, which is like, guys, if you know me, is a huge part of any healing journey. It's not just diet. So it's mindset, nutrition. So, finding the foods that work best for you. No template plans, no cutting out all these stupid things, figuring out what works best for you and your body and your thyroid. Lifestyle, right? Changing your lifestyle, your sleep, your environment. Like, so much goes into healing. And then community. Because I don't know if anyone's here watching who has an autoimmune disease or any kind of condition, you feel so effing alone.
Right.
Like, you're like, what's
wrong with me?
Right. No one understands. And so that's why I built the Hashimoto's method, like throughout Corona too, right? COVID times. That's super affordable, guys. It's a membership. There's like nothing else out there like this. And this is why I built it this way.
Right.
Because you get videos from me that teach you everything step by step. I have a 6-step success path that I have like honed in on, and not only for me, for my one-on-one clients. And you have the community, and it's $35 a month.
Right.
Like, that's crazy.
If you're paying $14 a month for Netflix and disregarding your health, we would like you to consider other options. Consider investing in other things that could potentially help support you in this time.
Exactly.
Right.
And showing up for yourself.
I love that. I mean, it's funny that you say the 4 pillars, because there's so many people, and myself included, we have our own way of addressing what the 4 pillars are. For me, it's food, mood, sleep, and exercise, or physical activity. But it's all kind of interrelated, because mood would be mental health, and it would also be support, or, you know, socializing, familial connections too. And lifestyle could be included in that too, because then are you, you know, drained, like energy wise? Could that be related to physical activity or gut issues? So it's all interrelated, the way that we approach these things. Chelsea, do you mind if I scroll through and just see if we can, I can't personally answer any of the things that are coming up in here, or some of the comments that are coming up, but let me at least read them to you. And again, just FYI, disclaimer, this is not medical advice. We don't know you personally. So when you dip into our DMs asking about every friggin' thing and something else about your brother and whatever, it's best just to set up an appointment with us so we can do it legit and learn about you behind the scenes, and not just give random general information. And keep that in mind too, that if anybody is answering questions like that, just be careful of what, you know, what potential issues could come up. So a lot of people were chiming in with, yes, they've either heard of it, not heard of it, or heard of it, but couldn't tell you what it is. The discussion about thyroid information, hypothyroidism was popping up in here too. So some people did mention that. Somebody says, I have both. Natalia is saying that she has a dilemma, and she's talking about plant-based foods, like vegan eating, and then is there some sort of connection of how she could support her vegan approach with Hashimoto's diet? Is it totally incompatible? And Natalia, just as a side note, you use the word detox. That's kind of a red flag in the dietetics world. We don't love using that word, because by nature, your liver and your kidneys help detoxify your system. But if you're talking about, like, I'm working to do a reset of some sort, and I'm trying to, you know, maybe minimize my processed foods, and you're going in the direction of vegan foods, I'm not judging any of that. Just FYI, just as far as the wording is concerned, I want to make sure, because she does say detox in here. Because like beans, cereals, no animal foods, that's what she's going into on, which, by the way, plant-based foods. All right, that's a whole different discussion, Natalia. But talk a little bit about that. Like, what's the approach, or, you know, as much as you want to share, because obviously you have people who are interested to go to you, but how you mentioned it's not restrictive. So how is the approach there? Can it work with somebody who's vegan, or who has food issues or food intolerances, or et cetera?
Yeah, so one of the main things that I teach is how to experiment with different foods to find out which ones your body likes and doesn't like. And that's it's pretty easy to do, right? And this is where I think other template plans, like the autoimmune protocol, has anyone heard or tried AIP? Because it's really hard and restrictive. And it set off a lot of my disordered eating triggers, because from a diet, a lifelong dieter, old dieter, it's hard. And I decided, when I went through it, AIP did not work for me. It just sent me to disordered eating again, and that really wasn't conducive to healing for me. So what I mean by not restrictive is it's slow. And it's one by one. And we're not cutting out food groups, right? You're having protein, fats, and carbs with every meal. It's experimenting. So by taking them out for a short period of time and then reintroducing these foods back in one by one, very slowly, to see how your body feels. Do you have energy? Are you tired, fatigued, things like that? So when it comes to a plant-based diet, it is very common for women with Hashimoto's specifically to be sensitive to legumes and soy, and sometimes grains. But I always say this, you know your body better than anyone in the whole world. You are an adult. You do you, what makes you feel good. I just know for me personally, and many of the women I work with, when we experiment with those foods, it tends to cause some triggers of symptoms. So that's one of the main reasons why I often say that a plant-based diet may not necessarily help, because some of the foods may be triggering some gut health issues, which are triggering the thyroid attack. That's not to mean that that could happen to you. You could totally go vegan. Just make sure, guys, if you are going plant-based or vegan, that you are working with someone to ensure that you're getting the right amount of fuel and energy for your day, the right amount of protein and vitamins and nutrients that your body, and especially your thyroid, needs to function. So that's key with it.
I appreciate that. Will you talk a little bit too about the role of vitamin D and calcium? Because I know sometimes when we're taught about thyroid, there's that discussion of like things that support it or help with controlling hormones and so on. What's the role there, especially since so many of us in the Northeast are completely deficient of a lot of things and we're all in lockdown, so nobody's going outside.
I know.
So what is the role with vitamin D, or is there a role with vitamin D when it comes to that?
Yeah, I mean, vitamin D seems to now be this like magic thing that everyone's talking about because we're all deficient in it. And I kind of laugh because I've been on this vitamin D kick for like ever. And I feel like it was just forgotten about for some reason, or it's like just the new thing. So vitamin D and your thyroid and calcium, I mean, gosh, your thyroid needs all of these things to actually convert the inactive form into the active form so that it can do the things it needs to do. Right. So making sure that you're getting enough, whether it's through your diet, so you can have fatty fish. My favorite, salmon. It's my go-to. It's boring. I literally bake it and then eat it, shove it in my mouth because, you know, whatever.
Whatever,
supplement with it.
Right.
Yeah. But you know, there's different supplements, there's drops. I try to eat in front of a window so that way I'm getting something if I can.
Smart. Okay.
Yeah. Just like little things to help you. And here's the deal, guys. One of the main things with vitamin D is if your gut health is impaired, then your body's not absorbing the nutrients the way they're supposed to. So that could also be a good hint that something's going on and you may need to work on gut health, because if you're not absorbing and your lab levels keep coming back lower and lower, that could be a key sign that gut health needs to be worked on.
I appreciate that. With a few minutes left here, let's just take a look of, see if anyone else is chiming in here about some things. I have some comments, or most of them saying hi, thumbs up. That's good. Good information. The ratio of men to women with having Hashimoto's, I know you said it's mostly women. I mean, do you know statistics wise?
I don't know the statistics. I do know that I have a few amazing Hashimoto's warriors that are men that do follow me. And I know it's hard for men. And I wish I knew a man who had it, who was a dietitian or a practitioner that I could refer them to. But I always say most of my posts, except for like getting your period and things like that, are gender neutral. So that does not mean that you shouldn't be implementing all of the tips and tricks that I have on my feed and in my lives and all that stuff. I just personally choose to work with women because I am a woman. That's literally the only reason. But that doesn't mean you can't get help, and that doesn't mean you can't start a healing journey. I don't know the ratio. I just know that it is much less common for men to get it. However, it's not impossible.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the method that you're working on right now, the program that you're working on right now. So you said it's $35 a month. Or do they have to commit for like a certain amount of time, or is it like they can come and go as they please, whatever's working? Because it is very individualized. So they can come and check in and check with you and so on. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a membership program. So essentially you have what I like to call the website. So there's a 6-step system that I came up with, and it goes through my 6 steps. And what's cool about it is that each step releases 30 days after the next one. And the reason that's intentional, right? People usually like roll their eyes until I explain why, is because I'm sick and tired of throwing noodles against the wall hoping this crap sticks. And I'd much rather eat my noodles and like enjoy the bowl of pasta. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been on every diet out there and nothing seemed to help until I took this slow and steady step and implemented and let it marinate. And then you also have the community going through each video and step with you who know what you're going through. So what I really like about the community so far, we have over 65 women, and we've only been open for about 2 weeks, which is just so amazing, is that like women are going through each video, like one video at a time. There's like at least 4 to 6 videos in each step, and there's a workbook and a guide, and I mean, there's everything. There's a recipe library. Like I thought of everything, and I made it super, super affordable because I needed this. I needed to like have a step-by-step like guided path that's not going to give me all the answers and makes it feel like a template plan, but like shows me how to implement these things in a realistic way, because we're all humans and we're all in lockdown, and like life is crazy, and why not enjoy the heck out of the process and have like women you could talk to about it, then keep falling on and off this bandwagon and like going on keto and then stopping and then, right? Like, it's all a process. So that's kind of why I made this program, is because I want something, I want, what I hope is that you feel empowered to start a healing journey and understand that this is your life. You have one, and we deserve to feel so effing good and have fun and feel energetic and be able to run around with our kids and like have all these things. And all it takes is really working on you and putting yourself first.
Yeah.
And that's really my hope for women watching everywhere.
You're going to make me cry. I'll tell you why, because I can't say this enough. It just always feels like everybody wants the quick fix, the magic pill, etc. It's your friggin' health. Like, be patient with yourself. You are however old. All of the damage that has been done, whether it's environmental or familial, or like if you've undergone a lot of illnesses, like whatever it is has taken you to this point. You can't just be like, 3 months I'm going to be better. It's a journey. Just like Chelsea said, it's a journey. It's a journey. So you have to go step by step. And I love the community aspect too, because I really feel that's accountability, support, etc. And what we are missing, like right now, we can't be outside with each other and going to places, but isn't it so much better to have a virtual arena that can literally bring everyone from all over the world together in one time? So I so appreciate you sharing all that with us, Chelsea. Thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, or anything that I didn't ask before we wrap up?
Oh, I'm not sure. I just know, guys, tonight is our first Q&A call in the method, and I'm so excited. This is where we come. You get to ask all of your questions. I coach you. Like, we have so much fun on these calls. We had our first one at the beginning of the month. So if you're interested in joining, like, come on in today and don't miss this call tonight, because it's like the women that are in the method are just holding each other accountable every day. It's just so I couldn't have asked for anything better. And yes, I cry on the toilet welcoming all these women in, because I just can't handle it. It's just, I feel so lucky that I get to be a part of these women's health journey, and that they chose my program.
I have one quick last question, because I'm also expected, I'm 3 minutes late to anyone watching this, to my next meeting. I'm sorry. But for international resources, because somebody chimed in where it seems like US, there's recognition here, but in England there is not. Do you have international resources, or are there, like, is there an international organization where people can go to?
I don't know of any, but if you are interested in joining the method, anyone and everyone can join. There's no restriction. You know, you show up for yourself and you take it seriously. Yeah. But I don't have a link in overseas yet. But if you are a registered dietitian overseas and you're interested in working with women with Hashimoto's and want to team up,
that's your gal. That's your gal. Now's the time to collab. Chelsea, thank you so much for coming on here. This was really fascinating. I really, and for me too, because I don't know anything about this, but yet I've heard just by saying it, and all of a sudden a lot of people are like, oh, I have that, or I have it, or I've just learned that I have it. And so I'm starting to learn a little bit more about that too. So I wish you all success in your endeavors. And I'm sure that your clients are going to be finding this such a beneficial interaction, both with you and the other members of your community. So thanks again for your time here.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. I know you're late to your call, but like, thank you. You're amazing.
Thank you, Chelsea. All right, I'm going to let you go. Bye.